Greetings and welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. I'm Phyllis Hollis, your host. As an extension of my Instagram page, Cerebral Women, this podcast offers insights into the visual art world. I interview artists, mainly artists of color and female artists who will freely articulate what inspires their creativity. In addition, you'll hear interesting perspectives from dedicated art professionals who work with artists and the art institutions that feature them. I'm confident that collectively, these individuals will indeed stimulate your mind as they do our eyes. Please know these interviews are conducted in my Manhattan apartment, so please forgive the background sounds of city life. Welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. In this episode of the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast, I feature Isolde Brielmaier. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Photography, Imaging, and Emerging Media at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, where she focuses on contemporary art, global visual culture, as well as media and immersive technology as platforms within which to rethink storytelling and the politics of representation. She is also the inaugural Curator-at-Large at the International Center of Photography, ICP, and previously oversaw the arts and cultural programming at the Oculus at Westfield World Trade Center. Isolde has written extensively on contemporary art and culture and is the author of Culture as Catalyst, published in 2020. She has served as curator at several institutions, including the Guggenheim Museum and the Bronx Museum. Among her distinctions, she has received fellowships from the Mellon and Ford Foundation, as well as the Social Science Research Council. She serves on the Board of Trustees of the new museum, as well as the Women's Prison Association. Isolde holds a Ph.D. from Columbia University and lives in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to the Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast, and enjoy this episode featuring Isolde Brielmaier. Isolde, I am so excited to feature you on my Cerebral Women Art Talks podcast. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Phyllis. It's great to be here.
So let's get started with you sharing with us, when did you recognize your love for the visual arts?
So that's a really great question. And it actually, I think, goes back to my childhood in Seattle. I am a proud product of the Seattle public schools. And at the time, they placed a very strong emphasis on the arts. Seattle is a big art city, particularly in terms of theater. And so I was really fortunate to go to schools really beginning at a very young age that took us on field trips to all of the various museums around the city. We used to go to a place called the Poncho Theater, and we used to see very shortened, abridged versions of Shakespeare. We would go to poetry slams at the Langston Hughes Cultural Center. It was really a kind of very early introduction into the arts in general. And then, Phyllis, I know you and I have sort of chatted on and off, and I have a background as a dancer. I started dancing when I was 7 and with the Pacific Northwest Ballet School in Seattle, and really danced all the way up through my mid-20s. But I think my experience and love of dance links very much up to the other art forms that I mentioned, whether it's theater, whether it's visual arts. And so I think there's sort of a natural kind of connection from dance, from performance, to thinking about the visual arts, contemporary art in particular, and even my practice as a curator, because we're really talking about presentation, we're talking about ideas, we're talking about storytelling, and we're talking about audiences. So there's a real kind of natural link there, I think.
And what do you enjoy most about what you do? You curate, you teach, research, being a leader. What do you enjoy the most?
There's so many things that I enjoy, I think, about what I do. I mean, I have to say, one of my mottos, whether it's related to facing challenges or just sort of related to the joy of work, is that it's not necessarily always about the work, but it is always about the people. I love what I do because of the people I get to do it with. So in terms of curating, I really enjoy working with artists and thinking through their work and their vision and how we can partner to kind of create a platform that honors their vision. And then, of course, then shares that vision, that work, their artwork with the public. Working in a museum context, you have a very, very broad team, and collaborating with all of those people on programs, on exhibitions. The people for me are paramount, really central. I also, am very much a project person in that I love thinking about a project, either sort of how to build upon an existing project or initiative, or how to start one and kind of create it from the ground up. There's something really fulfilling about building and creating. And then I think it's also, you mentioned the leadership piece, just in terms of working with people, supporting people to be their best selves, thinking about how to inspire people, how to support them in bringing their ideas and visions to life. I find that incredibly fulfilling. So I could go on and on. I do what I do because I love it.
Yes. Yep. Wonderful to have that type of career. And what type of relationships do you have with artists, and how do they inspire you?
Artists that's sort of the core of my work, I think, right? As a curator, as a scholar or a writer. Sometimes I have worked with artists whom I am not that familiar with as people. Obviously, I've followed their work, and that's a really wonderful process of getting to know someone, getting to know an artist, getting to know their work even more in that process of working together. And then there are artists that I'm just very close with. Many of us have, particularly here in the New York art world, and I guess I say that because there are many, many art worlds, I think, globally. But there are so many of us that have kind of come up through the art world together, particularly as Black and brown folks in the New York art world, where we sort of started out, as either, young curators or coming out of grad school, or young artists coming out of school, or just sort of starting to kind of build our careers. And we've all kind of, in a way, grown up together. And for those artists, I have much deeper relationships because I have that history with them. But either way, it's such a joy, I think, to work with artists. And, I really think artists see the world in a very unique way. Each in, his or her, their own unique and special way. And it's really wonderful to be close to somebody like that, to work with somebody like that, and to kind of view the world through their lens and through the lens of their artwork.
And early in your career, do you recall if there was a particular artist or any artist that influenced you?
Well, I can think of a lot of, early in my career. I would say I would go back to even when I was a dancer. There were a number of dancers that really inspired me. Mm-hmm. When I was coming up in the dance world, specifically ballet and modern, there were not that many dancers. And so I had people that I looked up to, and I also had mentors. The late Cabby Mitchell, who was a soloist at Pacific Northwest Ballet, was just an incredible mentor and really like family to me. And then I would look to sort of the broader, world of dance. And I thought about Maria Tallchief, who is one of the only kind of early indigenous ballerinas who danced in New York City Ballet, or Lourdes Lopez. All women of color who really inspired me. So I think it's so important to have an example, to have a sort of model. They don't even necessarily need to be a mentor, but to have something that you look to that really stands for a possibility, right? That stands for a dream that you can see is attainable. And then when I shift to the contemporary art space, my kind of inspirations and the people that I think that have supported me or really kind of laid the groundwork on which I walk, literally and figuratively, are so many. So and they're not just artists. I'm very, very grateful to Dr. Deborah Willis, who I have been, colleagues with, friends with. She's been a mentor. She herself is a really renowned scholar and artist. And of course, Thelma Golden, who is really a trailblazer and has just sort of led by example for all of us. And I just feel very indebted to her and really inspired by all that she has not only achieved, but also done for so many of us. And then, there are incredible artists out there as well who, again, I really think about this notion of the trailblazer, because I think as a young Black curator and scholar, and now someone who's a bit more established, I'm walking on ground that was laid by many others, and that work was not easy when that groundwork was laid. So I think about artists like Carrie Mae Weems, who is just still just on fire and so multidimensional in her practice and her her being. Lorraine O'Grady, who has a wonderful exhibition currently up here at the Brooklyn Museum, who is just incredibly, prolific. There are just so many artists, I think, that inspire me or inspired me, especially when I was younger and kind of coming up, that I really look to as showing me what was possible.
Yeah. What a privilege, huh?
Oh my gosh. It really is.
Yeah. So let's talk about the world we live in today. How do you feel the Black Lives Matters movement will impact the mission of art institutions going forward? And if you could also comment on what you feel is the role of the trustee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a year that we lived through last year, and what a moment we are still living through. And I say this with a lot of humility, because I know that there has been and still is, a lot of loss of life, loss of work, loss of hope, loss of health. So I'm very humble when I say this, but it was a really wild year, I think, globally. And then I think, that's sort of at the macro level. And then I think we can look, at the micro level in so many different spaces, sectors. And I think when we look at the arts, the combination of the pandemic, of the murder of George Floyd and so many others, Black and brown and trans folks, when we look at the election and kind of the turmoil that we experienced going through the election in this country, and we should be mindful because there were many, many tense elections around the world last year during this pandemic. And you think about, like, how did all of this impact the arts, right? Well, a lot of artists were out of work, out of home, out of, like so many, not even just artists, out of studios. The opportunities to present work, to engage with others about work were minimized, I think, initially at first. Of course, then we all moved into Zoom land, or many of us, but it really took a toll, right? And when we think about how much of a role art played for so many of us within the context of the pandemic in particular, we think about the importance of the visual in the racial justice. It's really significant, right? So many of us spent time watching movies, reading books, listening to music. These are all really important art forms. And when you talk about it, a city like New York, the arts and culture really form, much of the core of the city. People come here to live out their dreams, to be artists, to see art, to listen to music, to make films, to watch films, to write. So, that's, it's really, I think, quite significant. And I think that impact has also not been lost or did not miss art institutions, right? Specifically museums. There was already, I think, a big shift occurring, or a shift that needed to occur in museums. And I think over the course of the last year, you saw a lot of that. You saw museums, and in particular, people in leadership positions in museums being called out for inappropriate behavior, or funding coming from questionable sources, or whatever it may be. And people were really taken to task. And I think it's still happening. And I think it signals the need for some major transformative and structural work and change that needs to occur. I mean, at the end of the day, museums are institutions. They are structures and systems, and much like other structures and systems in other sectors. And structures and systems exist in part because they don't change as rapidly. They're not as fluid. They don't necessarily respond as quickly to the world in which they're situated. So I think we're seeing a lot of that occur right now, in the spaces of art institutions, from a staffing standpoint, from a sort of, quote unquote rules and regulations and policies standpoint, from a content standpoint in terms of what kinds of exhibitions they do with what kinds of artists, what kinds of programming, from a PR and marketing standpoint, in terms of the messaging around particular things that are occurring within the museum, but also even outside of the museum. So I think the impact is significant, but I think we're really just beginning to see, some of those shifts. I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done and that will be done.
Yes, it's promising and exciting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, change is a scary thing, right? But it's necessary.
It's necessary. And good can come from it. So
absolutely. Yep.
Do you feel Black art can be defined?
So, Phyllis, that's, I think a really interesting question. And I have to say, you almost have to break it into two parts. Can Blackness be defined and can art be defined? And I would probably say no to both. I think so much of that I want to leave open and up to artists themselves. Artists are people, obviously, as we know, and they have and should have the right to define who they are and how they see themselves and how they want to move through the world and what kind of work they put out into the world. They obviously don't control how people kind of take it in and interpret it. And I think some of it can also be left up to audiences, right? In terms of how they look at work and what they think about it and how they frame it for themselves and, frame it for others, whether it's a sort of, a general museum goer or a scholar. We can look at a work, 4 different people can look at a work and you can have 4 very, very different interpretations. And if you tell all of those 4 people that the work is actually intended to be X or defined as Y, I imagine, you would have a nice sort of dynamic debate that could possibly ensue. So I'm sort of less interested in definitions in the context of art and Black art in the art world. I'm interested in really, supporting the artists, amplifying their vision and work, kind of promoting what they're doing. Those are sort of the action points I think that I'm kind of more focused on, and very much less so in sort of defining. I'm not sure definitions get us very far in this context.
I appreciate that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel is the purpose of art?
The purpose of art. So it's so funny, Phyllis. These are all questions that are open to so many different answers or interpretations. I think art is meant to inspire and provoke and challenge. I think it is. It can be all of these things. It can be intended to please. It can be intended to surprise. It doesn't always have to be the most pleasant experience, but I will say the idea of inspiring, of challenging us to think about things differently, to see things differently, to see the world differently, to share with one another thoughts and ideas. I think art is really kind of in a sort of very general abstract way is sort of can be the impetus for all of that. But I don't think it has one particular purpose.
So in your current position, you're working more with photography as an art medium. Do you feel photography versus, let's say, a painting has a different impact on a viewer's perspective?
Again, I can't speak for all viewers and sort of the impact of what it is that they're looking at, but I can tell you, I think photography is definitely one of the more accessible of sort of visual art forms. I think particularly today where we live in a sort of visually driven image world, where we're really inundated by images. I think many people understand what a photograph, what an image is. I think an abstract painting for some may be more challenging, but it's not to say that it wouldn't have an impact. But I do think photography is an accessible form of visual culture. And I do think that in part because so many have access to their own making of photography, of photographs, of images, right? Whether it's using the smartphone or an iPad or, your laptop. There's just a level of familiarity, I think, that photography offers for folks. And then, of course, you think about how the photograph circulates in so many different contexts. So we've got art photography, there's photojournalism, there's documentary, there's fashion, and editorial. So I think it's an incredibly useful and impactful tool or vehicle of communication as well as art.
Do you have an opinion on how technology has impacted photography?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I say photography, I really actually like to stretch it further and really, kind of utilize the notion of image making and visual culture. Because, when we think of photography, I think there's a sense of kind of, straight, quote unquote, traditional photography. But, images are created in so many different ways and so many different formats now, including through the use of technology. So again, whether that's, using a smartphone. I have grown over the last several years very, very interested in the use, the way in which artists are using AI, so VR and AR, and the way they're using images and combining those images with sort of experiential components. So I definitely think there's the impact there. And of course, just thinking about the way in which cameras themselves and image making tools have evolved, through the sort of advent and evolution of technology, so that you have, instruments that are so kind of high tech and fine tuned, that you can use as artists to generate images. So there's a sort of undeniable relationship between images and photography and technology, for sure.
I'm always amazed at how it has impacted our world in general. This has been a fabulous conversation, and I'm going to end it by asking you one more question.
My pleasure,
and that
yes.
What are you excited about now?
I'm excited about a lot of things in life in general, Phyllis. I will say that I'm really, I feel hopeful, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how we move forward out of the pandemic, and I know that's coming ever so slowly, but how we as people, as creatives, as artists move forward, come, kind of back, so to speak, how we choose to reconnect, whether that's with one another, whether that's with art and artists, and whether that's with museums, and kind of what sort of world we choose to create, given, this past year and a half. I feel really excited about that. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, but I'm actually okay with that. I feel just kind of along for the ride and hope to play a role in some way or another in this sort of new future that I hope we will all be committed to creating.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's exciting. I think people are appreciating life differently.
Exactly. To be continued.
Yes. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Phyllis. It's been really lovely to speak with you, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.